Showing a similar pattern, UConn blew a huge early lead against St. John's on Saturday. What does it mean going forward? You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate all your support. We just hit over 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Appreciate that. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering UConn men's and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world. And we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. To show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right. What does this collapse in Storrs mean, and where do we go from here? If you're an everydayer, you've definitely heard me say this before. This UConn team is lacking in individual playmaking. They have lacked it since Liam was hurt. He obviously played a huge role in why they were even in the game in the second half as St. John's started to pull away. His initiative to get to the hole is one of the reasons why UConn didn't lose that game by double digits. It was in the building. If you guys didn't know, go check out the YouTube channel. It's pinned. It's like right up there. It's Locked On Campus. I went up by myself, did the whole thing at Ted's, did the trivia. So if you want to check that out, go do it. This show isn't about that. This show is about the game itself. UConn is a team that is incomplete. Dan has talked about this on his media availability. I will be on with him again at about 2:30 today with other beat reporters and people who cover the team to understand, the extent of Haas's injury. He's been gimpy as hell the last few weeks. Barely got through the Marquette game. Clearly was hampered with St. John's. Probably the two worst matchups for Haas to be hurt was Marquette, St. John's back-to-back, because those guys play you like they fight you. They hand fight you, they grab you. They body you. So it's just not a favorable matchup for them. It just isn't. They script a ton of plays. They do a ton of matchup. And that's the thing is, like, the thing that UConn has been missing, and this is straight from Dan's mouth, and I'll play the video here in a second from the press conference, but this is something that we've talked about on this show, whether I've done a solo show, whether Dan's been on, whether we've had a guest. They lost a ton of high-end NBA talent. They also lost individuals who could bail them out when the play doesn't go according to plan. How many times last year did Steph take someone off the dribble and get a bucket and a foul? How many times did Tristan do that? How many times did Cam Spencer do that? How many times did Haas do that because he wasn't playing 35 minutes a game? These are hindsight is 2020 roster mismanagement. They didn't bring in a guy who you could just give the ball to and go get points. They thought Aiden was going to be that. He clearly is not. No matter how much we want him to be, no matter how much we think he's a great guy, because I think he's a good kid. I think he comes from a great family, but that is not about basketball. That is a personal thing. He's a really great kid. And, I hope he continues to improve. Solo ball is made an incredible leap from freshman to sophomore year. Almost better than Andre Hawkins. The difference between Solo and Andre is Andre was on a team where if he didn't get a bucket, someone else could. If Solo's not on, this team is in shambles. And luckily for us, he's been white hot, just like a poker in a fireplace. Like, it's unbelievable. And he started that way against St. John's. Another player that I thought played really well against St. John's and then mysteriously kind of went away was Jaylin Storrs. And he didn't go away on purpose. Dan didn't play him a lot in the second half. I have no idea why. I don't know if he feels he doesn't give them enough on defense, but then you go back to the Villanova game and how good he played against Eric Dixon, who's the leading scorer in the entire country. That was perplexing, and I'm going to apologize to you guys as a listener base because that should have been a question I asked. I only get one per press conference, right? And I didn't want my first question to Dan Hurley to be, "Hey, do you think you screwed up here?" He doesn't know me. I want to establish a little bit of credibility before I question everything that he does, and I don't question his tactics. I think he's trying to squeeze out every possible point and every possible possession out of this team. And let's just listen to him for a second. There's about a 1.5-minute clip I want to play, and then we'll get back into my impressions of this game. But it's better to hear from the man himself.
I think the ball was. I think number one, I think Liam is attracted to the ball because he wants the ball. Some of it was. Or I would say it probably maybe 50-50 split of in terms of people that looked confident or competent with the ball. At that point, it didn't feel like there were a lot of other options for us. So we've got to figure that out. But again, I credit. There's not a lot of defenses that were.
Before we get into him saying, this defense is really good, because it's true. I don't think you're going to play a ton of defenses like St. John's. They're very similar to Houston in that respect. However, he says something like, we got to figure that out. When? It's February 10th. You got a game in tomorrow against Creighton on the road. And obviously we're going to find out about Haas's injury later today. Who are you going to find that? Who are you going to figure that out with? I think that's the biggest issue. Is this should have been something that was figured out preseason, or at least like in the bye games, right? I think they felt that was going to be Liam, but when he got hurt, like who can go get you a bucket?
We're going to play against, and I do think that their defense, with the pressure, with the switching, and with how great a job they do with it, it's a tough matchup for the way that we play. We've got to find other people that are able to put the ball in their hands in space and can just go and create.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, but we've got to find other people that are able to put the ball in their hands in space and can just go and create.
I played it twice so that you could hear it. I'm going to play it one more time, and I'm going to do it really low so I can talk over it. I'm going to drop his volume a little bit, and we're going to play that over because this is such a crucial point.
It's a tough matchup for the way that we play. We've got to find other people that are able to put the ball in their hands in space and can just go and create. It's hard to.
Got to find other people, and he's talking to other people, referring to Liam, other than Liam, that can put the ball in their hands and just go create. And he finishes the sentence, and I'm going to let him do it, off script. So it's not about getting someone open for a three like Solo, or getting someone open for a three like Alex, and we'll get to Alex later, or dumping it down to Terrace, or getting the slips or the backdoor cuts, as people have mentioned to me before. If they're playing you that tough, you got to go backdoor. That's true, but when the defense is that good, and your point guard and your facilitators don't have the impetus to go to the hole and create like Dan is talking about, then you don't get the backdoor cuts because no one respects you. And so that's just something that needs to change.
Script out, actions the entire game. We need guys to be able to win more one-on-ones and
win more one-on-ones. Did you hear that?
And go make plays in space and do things more off script and
make plays in space and do things more off script. That is 100%. No, I don't want to hear anybody else talk about what this team should or shouldn't do. This man knows basketball. He has won 2 straight national championships. Is it his fault that they don't have a player that does this? Yes, because they could have picked someone else in the portal, or they made a mistake with different people coming in. That's for off season. Currently constituted, this team needs to figure out ways to do what he said and create off script one-on-one and win those one-on-ones, because I'm sure he sees it in practice. I don't think he's looking at this practice going, man, this team sucks. But when it comes to the game, they're so in the offense, they're not getting enough, opportunity for guys to, win some of these one-on-ones. Last little bit here.
That's obviously a strength for Liam.
Right? Obviously a strength for Liam. So biggest issues, we're going to talk about the turnovers coming up at the break, but they don't have anyone that can bail them out. They run fantastic action. Rick Pitino, who I don't have this clip, he basically nuked the entire press conference and said, here's how this game was won. We got blitzed. Our team didn't panic. We put on a full court press because we figured if we full court press them and we did a good job and we didn't foul, they would get tired and we'd take their legs out from under them. That is like when a boxer punches himself out and the other boxer just survives and just is kind of like, just jabbing, and eventually knockout punch. That's what St. John's did. We're going to talk about the turnovers, Haas's injury, and does this team have hope, or are we just hyping them up for an eventual fail at the end of the year? We're going to talk about that coming up after the break. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off and want to be on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for bigger payouts, you can even combine your live bets in a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn here with your host, Mark Zanetto. If I saw you on the trip, it was well worth it, and I hope to be back to see you again. I will be back on March 5th. Flights are booked. Hotels are booked. I'll be in Hartford on the 18th to see the Villanova game, and to kind of hang out with you guys and talk UConn hoops. But before we get into that, there's more meat on the bones to talk about with this team right here. We've had a 2-game stretch against Marquette and St. John's, both very highly touted defensive teams. In fact, if we look at Ken Pom as of today, St. John's is ranked second in defensive efficiency, only behind Tennessee, Houston, and Duke. And where's Marquette? Marquette is ranked 26th in defense. So not as good, but pretty damn good. And I think they were 15th at the time that we played them. And they've kind of dropped off, right? But this UConn team is ranked number 12 in offensive efficiency and 108 in defense. So their defense is getting better. They're getting closer to that under 100, which is a good thing. And I think part of having Liam back definitely helps their efficiency ratings. But you can't have 47 turnovers. One hand washes the other. The first segment we just talked about where Dan said we need more people that can handle the ball, that can make plays off script, because it's hard to script action constantly. And they run more action than any team, I think probably 3-1 in terms of how much movement. What's the famous quote from Dan last year in one of the huddles? The music never stops. It truly doesn't. But with this team, it kind of is like a slow motion version of the music never stops. Like, wow. Like that's what it sounds like. You ever play back you put on a podcast and you do it 2 times slower. It sounds like everyone's drunk. That's what this team looks like in terms of how they move around the court, because there's typically not as much fluidity, right? Solo's doing a great job getting around screens. He runs those counters great where he comes around and fades that way off the wing to get open threes because he's only 6'3", and sometimes it's hard to shoot over people. Alex does a decent job of of doing backdoor cuts where you can get Terrace on a slip. We saw one of those at St. John's in the St. John's game, but there's just not that like pop, pop, pop. The ball sticks. And when the ball sticks against a team like St. John's, against a team like Marquette, that's when you get turnovers because these guys have active hands. And the referees don't want to call fouls every single time you touch the ball. And that is just most of these Big East officials are trying to not call fouls. I can guarantee you that. The ones that call the most are the ones that we make fun of, like the James Breedings, or the ones that don't call anything, and then all of a sudden they get whistle happy. The inconsistency is a frustration. We don't have to get into that. But the turnovers are the turnovers, guys. I mean, just like silly ones, like even Dan said in the press conference, like Terrace, just like getting a ball on the fast break and just running a dude over and like four. That's a turnover. That's a charge. Or outlet passes that are thrown to nobody. The inability to get the ball in bounds is something that is so frustrating, but it's partly a part of because you're facing guys who overwhelm you. Haas is 6'1". He's got, Kadari Richmond or RJ Lewis on him who are 6'7", 6'8", who are probably outweigh him by about 100 pounds. And then you have like someone like Solo, who's, broad shouldered and a big kid, but he's only 6'3". And so he's also not the point guard. So like he's trying to get himself ready. And like everyone is kind of running around. I think the issue is like, you don't have a guy like Klingon to get the ball in bounds to then hand it off to your point guard. These are kind of like these small little immeasurable things that we don't have in this team. And a guy like Terrace, who, by the way, I think has done a phenomenal job getting himself into this system, had another huge rebounding game, 15 rebounds and 12 points. So he had a double-double against St. John's, a really good defense. I don't think he played poorly. I just don't think he did enough. And that's just a fair statement. Sampson had a tough game. It was not effective. Alex, I mean, I don't know, Alex. Like I love you. I'm not. This isn't being a criticism of your game. I think you have a phenomenal game. I just think you don't maximize the opportunity that has been given to you, which is you got paid to come back, like everybody did. But I'm sure if you're not the highest paid player on this team, you're close. And then on top of it, yes, should we be grateful that Alex Karaban has back-to-back national championships and he's also one of the best winners in college basketball history? Yes, I was banging the table for him to be a preseason All-American. But one of the things that I think we ignored is the leap that he was trying to make from the fourth or fifth best player on his team or the fourth or fifth option to now being the one or the two. And then when number two goes down and you're the one, or your number one goes down and you elevate from 2 to 1, however you want to look at it, between Liam and Alex, there are two best players before this solo surge. That has been an incredible challenge for Alex. One of the things that we talked about last year on Locked On UConn in terms of the season is Alex's shooting slump even as they went into the tournament. Why was he having a shooting slump? Because they were playing better competition. And if you look at splits, like Georgetown was terrible last year. Take the Georgetown game. Both games against Georgetown, I think Alex had career highs. And his shooting splits against non-quad one teams were always higher in the mid-40s to high 47. Think about the stretch this year where he comes out of the gates firing, making everything. Having confidence. I'm the man. I'm the guy here that's trying to lead us to a third straight national championship. Loved it. Even on games he struggled, fire away. Perfect. Take 15 shots. He was what is he, 1 of 14 one game? Who gives a rip? Dan said it in the press conference. F it. Sometimes you just have to fall on your shield and go 3 of 15 and show the boys that you are not scared. And he played scared on Saturday. And I think part of it, and I deal with this too. And I'm not giving him a break. I felt like he played scared. I felt like he didn't play up to his potential. And that's unacceptable. And even Dan said it was unacceptable in the press conference for him to only take, I think, 3 shots or whatever it was. The only thing that I will say about Alex is this is something that I'm making an analogy to the article I wrote in my Substack. When a quarterback is a rookie, and like Jaden Daniels is a perfect example. There's a year now of film on him to study his film, to see what his tendencies, to know what he likes to do. And you can guarantee, unless this dude is the second coming, there will be a drop-off. And I hate to say that to Commanders fans who are probably super excited about where their team is at, even after the Eagles just won a Super Bowl. But it's one of those things where, and Jaylin Hurts, same thing. For year he starts, I think they made the Super Bowl, and he was exposed on a few things. He looked great last night. And why am I bringing up quarterbacks? Because there's a thing that is elevated when you start to play better competition. Anybody can look good against my Giants, who are terrible, who their cornerbacks can't cover anybody. Their linebackers don't know how to cover a tight end, all of that, right? And when you just fire into these gaping windows that look like French doors, you can just fire a balloon through them, right? One of those hot air balloons, not like a little tiny balloon. I'm talking like a hot air balloon that can fit like 20 people. Those are the holes against bad defenses, kind of like the Big 12. If you watch the Big 12 play defense, it's usually pretty bad, or has been historically, right? ACC, the same thing. You see all, I think that's why it's so hard to really evaluate quarterbacks, is because the windows in college are different from the pros. So there's levels at every stage. For Alex, the window that he shoots in against a non-quad one, a team that doesn't play good defense, is like this. But against St. John's, it was like a keyhole. And that for him is not aesthetically pleasing and does not feel comfortable for him. But what do we say on Friday before I left, or on Thursday before I left? Change is never comfortable. Nothing ever comes from being comfortable. You have to grow, and growth is uncomfortable. And for Alex to grow as a player and for him to grow as a leader, he's got to be comfortable going 5 for 14 from the floor or shooting 20 shots, because who else is going to shoot? Some of the criticisms earlier this year is, why does Haas have the ball at the end of the shot clock all the time? Because he's the only one with the balls to shoot it at the end of the shot clock. Solo has lately. Liam will. This is during Liam's injury. Now Liam's back, so some of that's going to change. But you still can't let Alex off the hook. He's got to shoot more. A shooter shoots his way out of a slump. He doesn't, go back to the lab and say, well, I'm a terrible shooter now. And for all the people that are like, he's got a weird rotation, he has a weird rotation in the last couple of years, and he's made a crap ton of shots. And yes, are there holes to it? Probably, but you're not going to be practicing a new form or changing how you shoot mid-season. So for all those, trainers out there that think they know how to shoot a basketball, please save the comments. It's just, that's not the issue. There's a lot of guys who have made God, I could go over a list of 20 guys in the NBA that have terrible jump shots, like form-wise, and they make them. It's just, it's people have remade their shots as time has gone on, sure. So maybe if Alex gets to the pros, or, he gets a recommendation, maybe that changes, and then you guys can be vindicated because you guys are all form experts. But Alex just needs to stop being a perfectionist and be like, dude, I need to win this game. Go to the hole more. Try to create contact. That's what Liam did in the second half. His first initial threes weren't falling, but didn't stop him from getting to the rack. Alex does so many little things and gets everyone in place, but the biggest thing that we need him to do is to step up from an offensive perspective, because who else is going to do it? It's certainly not going to be some of the young guys, because they're not playing. Again, I don't know why Jaylin Stewart didn't play. Maybe I'll ask that question to Dan in the press conference today. I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'll find some answers for that. So stay tuned for that. When we come back, does this team have any hope, or are we just hyping it? Are you mad at some people who are already packing it in for the season, essentially, and just saying, well, it was great while we had it, and we'll regroup for next year with a bunch of big time recruits coming in? We'll talk about all of that coming up after the break. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. As I said, I'm going to do a media availability with Dan and other reporters at 2:30 Eastern time. So I should get an update on Haas's injury. He did say in the press conference that they may just have to shut him down for a week just to kind of get him healthy, because he's not practicing. And so the amount of minutes he ends up playing in a game when they start getting to the thick of things, and he's a warrior, is one of the reasons why he's just not getting better, even if he's not practicing and getting, stim or, cold tub, hot tub, whatever. It's a knee, these things need rest. I just hope he's not doing a damage that he's that he can't come back from. In other words, like where he's just kind of constantly pounding on that knee. I don't even know if it's the left or the right one, but it doesn't matter. Does this team have hope? I think they do. And I say this because I think anything is possible. And when you have some guys like Liam, when you have guys like Alex, if Haas is healthy, but we always do this, like where I think there is, but there's always caveats, right? Can Alex get over his hesitancy? Is it a mental block, or is it matchup issue? Is it when he sees these bigger, stronger, faster teams, is he hesitant to just let it rip? I'm curious to see what the Liam effect will do with the Creighton game. I think he shook off enough rust to be a potential big-time spark down the stretch. I mean, what do you have, 19 and 13 in this game against St. John's? Let's look at those numbers really quick as I talk about it. But that to me is going to be the biggest questions, right? Is Haas going to be able to play? Do we have the type of team, or is anyone going to step up? Is Ahmad Noel going to get a chance to come back from his injury and essentially take over the reins at point guard? Because I can sure as hell tell you they're not going to give it to Aiden. I mean, Aiden barely plays, and probably for good reason. So it's one of those things where, what do you do? Do you look at it from a perspective of, I don't think anyone's looking at it as a lost season, but it's one of those things where if you don't have a point guard and you don't trust, like Jaden Ross played terrible against St. John's. He barely even saw the floor. If we didn't have Liam in that game, it would have been just an absolute nightmare. And so let's look at these stats. Let's go. St. John's, it was Friday night game. Box score. Okay. So let's check this out. So Haas on a bum knee plays 34 minutes. Liam McNeeley, minutes restriction, 29 minutes. BS. This is the line that Liam had is the exact same line that Alex should have had. Okay. Alex took 6 shots. He was 1 of 6. He was 0 of 5 from 3, and he was 1 of 2 from the free throw line. He only had 3 assists. He only had 3 rebounds. Terrible. Liam had played 29 minutes. Only played 2 more minutes than Alex. And Alex didn't play the last 10 minutes of the first half. 4 of 15. Wasn't efficient. 2 of 9 from 3. Wasn't efficient. 8 of 10 from the free throw line. That'll get it done. 11 defensive rebounds. He was all over the glass. Only had 3 turnovers. So, look. Haas had 6 turnovers in this game because he's hobbled. He played 34 minutes. My guy gave you 5 rebounds and 3 assists and his heart on the floor. Solo started off hot, 13 points. But, right, Jaden only played 5. Aiden played 6. Look, they need someone to step up. Who's it going to be? I don't have any answers for you on that one. I'll have some answers on injuries. I'll have some answers on Jaylin Stewart. It's what seemed like a promising start. Like, he did play 21 total minutes, but I felt like we didn't see him down the stretch. And I think in the games where Alex is hesitant, you just got to throw Jaylin in there and say, F it, right? The same thing that he took. If Alex isn't going to say F it, then Dan has to say F it and put in Jay Stu and just rock with Jay Stu, Liam, because then they're big. Honestly, put Solo at the point if Haas is hurt, and then roll with Jay Stu, Liam, Alex, and Terrace or Sampson. And now you're a big lineup because it's basically an unpoint guard lineup. And if Ahmad is available, then you throw him in a point guard and you rotate guys in that way. Other than that, I don't have answers for this team. It's a frustrating thing. Should you quit on the team? Absolutely not. I don't think you're a fan if you do. But I do think if you were going to be realistic, it's a back and forth season. Every time we think they're going to go on a run, they sweep the rug out from under us, right? They just go whoop, and we fall on our face, and we're like, damn, we had a chance. Because if they beat St. John's, if they win that game, and especially if they do it in convincing fashion like they started off, everyone's going to start being like, man, whew, you don't want to play UConn in March. Now people are like, if you play UConn, just press them. They don't have anybody that can dribble. They truly don't. And I say that because people are thinking, I'm going to say, like, it's not like they're dribbling like they're, 9-year-old kids who've never touched a basketball before. Levels. They don't have anybody that can break you down. Everybody can dribble. But as you noticed, they also got the ball taken away from them plenty of times. So turnovers, gotta minus those turnovers tonight. It's a better matchup against Creighton. I know that's going to sound silly in Omaha tomorrow. Better matchup tomorrow. But at that Chai Health Center. It's like a house of horrors. Could it be a worse game to play back up off of St. John's loss than to go to Omaha and try to get a game against Creighton, who's playing really well? All right, that's another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure those toughness meters are always rising. And as always, go Huskies.
Go Huskies.